social transformation and environmental responsibility, and our commitment to live out these values through worship, reflection, connection, and service. You are part of a community that welcomes all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, income, ability, or spiritual beliefs. Whether in person or via live stream, we share this precious time and space. Let's rejoice in our time together. We will have a social hour directly after the service, plus discussion in Parlor around 11:30. Parlor discussion can be accessed via Zoom. The link is in the order of service found on our website and will be displayed on the screen for a few minutes at the conclusion of the service. We wish to offer a special welcome to Joe Mulholland, who is returning to our chancel as our guest music director, as our usual director of music is away teaching at music camp this summer. Welcome back, Joe. We welcome our live stream attendees and invite our in-person attendees to turn to the camera and wave at the live stream audience. Let those of you here in the sanctuary take a few minutes to greet one another now.
We begin this morning with a responsive invocation. I will read the words in standard type, and the community and I will respond with the words in italicized type. You can find these words in your order of service. We come today to join in the spirit of love and in the service of life. We come today to be part of the stream of living tradition. In our gathering, may we be blessed. Our shared faith is made up of people who gather. Our shared faith is called by the beacon of love and justice. Our shared faith is breathed into life by the questions and the actions of the people. Through our faith, may we strive to use our hearts, minds, and deeds to bring more love, justice, and truth into the world. May we seek to serve life, each with our own gifts in our own ways, always doing so in love. May we know ourselves held in the love that is always with us.
I now invite Ella Crom to light our chalice. We dedicate the chalice lighting with these words by Barbara Pescan. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. We light our chalice as a reminder to live in the moment, to love mightily, and to bow to the mystery. Please rise now in body or in spirit to join in singing the hymn number 34 in the great hymnal, Though I May Speak with Greatest Fire.
Sometimes the universe provides unexpected gifts and opportunities. We received such a gift this past spring when Ella Crom, a Wellesley College student, came to worship. At coffee hour, she asked me if we would be open to having a summer intern. And here we are, almost at the end of her time with us. While this is not her last Sunday with us, we wanted to take a moment to name our appreciation for how Ella has supported the congregation through leading elements of the summer services, running the technology for the after-worship conversations, and during the week, providing clerical help and working multiple miracles with our website. In just her short time with us, she has upped our game with our social media presence. And through interviewing members of the congregation, she has developed insights into the life of the community, our strengths, and our growing edges. Peter Coccoluto and Sheila Rudolph Correa have served as a two-person intern committee for Ella, and I will hand the microphone to Sheila so she can share a bit more about our appreciation for her service and leadership, and to give Ella a few gifts we have prepared.
Dennis Brett and Martin Newhouse coordinated the summer services this year, and they observe, in part, that Ella came in asking a lot of questions, and in 2 weeks' time, she was basically running the summer services. She participated in every aspect of the service, including singing in the choir, and when not completing a task for the service, she was interacting with the congregates. She has an upbeat and energetic presence. To Ella, they say, "Please come back, and good luck in your future endeavors." Our administration and outreach manager, Richard Dorbin, had this to say, in part: "Ella's joyful energy is infectious, and her competency shines. I've teased her that we need to find a way to keep her from going back to school or North Carolina or anywhere other than here at WUS. It's been my personal privilege to have worked with Ella. I can only hope to remember her time here at WUS and contemplate a future that will undoubtedly include a great number of us saying, 'I knew her when. She used to work here, and now look at where she is.'" And Ella, it has been delightful having you here. It's been wonderful interacting with you. You have such a wonderful, positive presence here. And it's been great to see your insights as someone outside of the congregation who's now in the middle of it, and what you see reflecting back at you from us. And so thank you so much. I'm so happy to have been part of it. Okay, in gratitude to you, Ella, we have a few gifts of appreciation. So there's a small chalice, and the candle is handmade from the remnants of the candles we kindle on Sunday mornings. This way, whenever you miss us, you can light this chalice and be reconnected to the joys and sorrows of this community that has come to treasure you in such a short time. Or you can sip some tea from this beautiful mug with an image of one of our stained glass windows emblazoned with Winchester Unitarian Society. If you found the summer stressful, you can also sip some tea to relax after all that hassle. And there's also a card naming our gratitude. And inside the card, there's a gift card, so you can purchase something that is your heart's desire. And finally, a few bars of Reverend Heather's handmade soap for a little pampering. Enjoy, Ella, and thank you.
Ella, would you like to say a few words, or you don't have to?
No, just a big thank you for welcoming me into your community for such a short period of time. I feel like I've only been here a bit, but I feel like a part of the community, a part of the family, and it's just been so wonderful to talk with each and every one of you and to learn more about this. And I can't wait to come back and be able to just sit in the pews and watch it unfold in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Ella, and you're always welcome. We've now come to the time in our service where we give voice to the joys and sorrows that live within our hearts and minds. If you would like to light a candle, please come forward, share your name and whatever is on your heart. Just a friendly reminder that we are actually live streaming now that we've fixed our tech issues. So this will be streamed into the universe and will be available on the archives. So you might want to hold off on your deepest, darkest secrets. If you would like the candle bowl brought to you, please raise your hand and we can come to you in the pews. Before we go to the open candle time, I just ask that Ella will light a candle. In celebration, we heard from Tom Moltenhoe and Melissa Hay. They were expecting their first child, and Finn Hay Moltenhoe was born on August 3rd, and everyone is healthy, and I can't wait to meet him in person. So we light a candle in celebration of the birth of Finn. If you have a joy or sorrow, please come forward.
Thank you. I think you guys know who I am by now. I'm lighting a candle in joy for the lovely visit that my sister-in-law and my nephew had with us. They fly back to Toronto in about an hour, and it's been a pleasure.
It is a joy to hand the microphone to you.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, Phyllis Preston. I am lighting a candle in joy of all the good times I've had with family members this summer and in sorrow for some of the suffering that some of them are going through.
Hi, my name is Dennis, and I'm up here for two reasons. One, to thank Ella. I don't know how we ever did it without her this particular summer. And the other thing is that, as we talk about, things ending, this kind of happens at the end of summer, and everybody's, feeling down about it. I'm encouraged by it. I like the fact that summer ends and this fall begins, because things start happening again. The choir starts, and so it's a very exciting time for me, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
I'm Ginger. This week we lost Snowy, who was Brenta's favorite cat.
In a moment, I'll ask Ella to light one last candle in affirmation of all the silent joys and sorrows that still remain unspoken within. And after she lights that candle, we will be together in a time of shared silence, and out of the silence, we will sing hymn 123, Spirit of Life. Ella, let us light that one last candle. Let us now be together.
issues relevant to the UU tradition and contemporary ministry. Our own Reverend Heather is a member of Greenfield. This past spring, the Greenfield Study Group explored the Unitarian Universalist Association's process of revisiting the principles of Unitarian Universalism. Their reflection and discussion was influenced by an interview with two leaders who served on the UUA board when this process began, the Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve and Kathy Burek. This morning, we will watch an excerpt from this interview. The primary speaker is Reverend Grieve, but Kathy Burek makes a brief appearance. Let's watch.
You have to, for me, I have to remember what the context of the board's work was when we were putting the charge together, right? Alandra and I came in as co-moderators after Jim Key had died, as we were, as an institution, struggling through relationships and how we are in right relationship with one another. And time and again, our conversations came back to how do we love indifference? And so that, it wasn't a spoken thing, but it was an undergirding to everything the board was doing. And so, you know, I remember part of the board meeting, like I viscerally remember the part of the board meeting where we were, you know, in the UA chapel is around the tables with the newsprints up on the wall and all the words and all the ideas. And it just kept coming back to love, love, love. And I think it was Manish who said, we have to have love at the center. That's where we're going and where we need to be. And it was a aha moment for almost all of us in the room to like, yes, that. Yes and no, right? If you were sitting on our side of the table in the conversation, you have to remember, again, context is everything. When Peter Morales resigned from the presidency, there was a lot of, and I'm going to name it for what it was, hate mail that went to board members. As the board moved through its processes to figure out what to do, and we had tri-presidents, and as we began to set up the Commission on Institutional Change, and as their report rolled out, there was, and I'll say it again, hate mail. There were Unitarian Universalists claiming solidly their Unitarian Universalism that did not include making space for other thoughts and ideas and people, at the level where board members resigned because of the level of hate mail they got. So it was clear when I came in as co-moderator, and Alandria had been on the board for a year before me and had endured more than I did. And, you know, I looked around the board and we talked about things. We knew that our people collectively needed to be reminded that we are a faith of love, not hate. And so that's a part of why this is as clearly articulated as it is, because the lived experience of board members of that time, of leaders of that time, was not filled with love. It was filled with people telling them they were horrible people. How do you recover from that? But to say, clearly, we are re-articulating who we are, and we're going to make sure that you're reminded that love is at the center.
This past June, I celebrated my 18th anniversary of ordination in the Unitarian Universalist ministry. Since first hearing a call to serve what is often named a living tradition, kind of like the spirit of life that we sung about earlier, I have ministered to 4 congregations, 2 as a student and 2 after ordination. But I've also been a member of 2 other congregations, Arlington Street Church here in Boston and Unity Temple in Oak Park, Illinois. I joined Unity Temple while studying for the ministry in Chicago. I remember a moment in the newcomer class at Unity Temple, one of the workshops one took in advance of becoming a member. There was another newcomer named David, and he and I had something in common. Both of us lived in Hyde Park, about 20 miles from that classroom where we sat, taking part in the newcomer session. There was a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Hyde Park. Actually, at the time, I lived across the street from this church, which begged the question of why both he and I traveled so far to attend worship most Sundays. When asked about his journey to Unitarian Universalism and Unity Temple specifically, David told this story. The first time David went to Unity Temple, it was as a tourist, as the building is one of Frank Lloyd Wright's architectural masterpieces. This made Sunday a little bit weird, as at 1 o'clock, things shifted in the building from a house of worship to a museum, complete with the revolving postcard rack and everything. While touring the building, David saw a framed poster of the 7 Principles of Unitarian Universalism. The tour guide from the Wright Foundation said that the building was still used for worship and shifted the questions back to the building itself. But David's attention remained with those words printed on the wall, and when he read them, he knew that he found his spiritual home. So he attended worship at that congregation closer to his apartment. At coffee hour, a member of the congregation must have recognized that he was new to the community because they approached him and asked simply, "Are you lost?" This was not the kind of welcome that David had hoped for. I had received an equally indifferent reception when I attended worship at that congregation, which explained why both David and I traveled so far to join another community. For as long as I have been a Unitarian Universalist, like David, these principles have given voice to my spiritual convictions. I know many of you literally carry these principles with you on a wallet-sized pre-printed card. So in conversation with friends and neighbors, you can easily share the foundational beliefs of Unitarian Universalism, perhaps helping someone else find their spiritual home. More recently, a number of congregations, including the Winchester Unitarian Society, have adopted an 8th principle, speaking to our commitment to changing the world through dismantling racism and other systemic oppressions. These words also resonate with my personal commitments and my vision of a world more in the shape of justice. But Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition. This means there is a shared understanding that our rituals, our worship, our language of reverence will change as the world changes around us. This means, as affirmed in the hymn, As Tranquil Streams, that the spiritual freedom Unitarian Universalists cherish is a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more. This means we refrain from worshiping idols by not creating them in the first place. And so now we are in a time of revisiting the principles and considering other language to describe our shared spiritual convictions. The Unitarian Universalist Association is a coalition of Unitarian Universalist congregations, which, as a separate organization, supports UU communities and amplifies the best of Unitarian Universalism. The 7 Principles is the second article in the UUA bylaws, or Article 2, which is why you will sometimes hear the process of revisiting the principles as simply Article 2, perhaps the most wonky and boring way to describe reflection on shared spiritual beliefs. A statement on the UUA website speaks to Unitarian Universalism as a living tradition. They write, "There have been many projects, resolutions, task forces, and other strategies that have come from the board, Commission on Appraisal, and grassroots groups which encourage us to take a look at our principles, purposes, bylaws, and rules. It is time for us to do a review and make changes so that we are living into the Unitarian Universalism of the future, a Unitarian Universalism that holds us in times of great need and ethical, moral, and spiritual crises. We are in one of those times now." For the past few years, the Article 2 Commission of the UUA has taken their mandate seriously, setting aside the 7 or 8 principles to discern the contemporary articulation of Unitarian Universalist belief. This past fall, I shared their initial draft with the Winchester Unitarian Society in worship. This June, delegates to the UUA General Assembly, including delegates from our congregation, participated in a process by which changes and amendments were considered. While Universalists don't believe in hell, I would argue that hundreds of people wordsmithing a document in real time is pretty close to it. Sparing you the play-by-play, the primary thing to know is that the delegates voted to continue the process for one more year, with final decisions to be made at the next General Assembly, which will be entirely online. It is noteworthy that one proposed amendment seeking to embed the current 7 principles into the new Article 2 failed to receive the necessary votes. The draft revised Article 2 will need to be endorsed by 2/3 of the delegates for adoption in 2024. Should it fail, the process cannot begin again for at least 2 years. So I come before you this morning to share the draft as it stands now. The current articulation has been imagined more as a circle, a colorful pinwheel, than a list of principles. For this part of the reflection, I invite you to experience the draft like a meditation. Do what you need to be fully present to spoken words. Close your eyes, concentrate on your breath, slow down. As Marcy and I slowly read these reimagined values, covenant, and inspirations, consider whether these words make you feel like they reflect your spiritual home or whether you are somehow lost. Do they resonate with what you believe? Marcy will begin.
The purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love.
Values and covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are
Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. With humility and reverence, we covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, creating and nurturing sustainable relationships of repair, mutuality, and justice.
Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Justice. We work to be a diverse, multicultural, beloved community where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations and within society at large.
Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect.
Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Equity. We declare that every person has a right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
Inspirations. As Unitarian Universalists, we proclaim that direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder are a primary source of inspiration. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which these understandings were created and are currently practiced. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. grateful for the experiences that move us, aware of the religious ancestries we inherit, and enlivened by the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom.
But we have not yet reflected on perhaps the most important part of the proposed new Article 2, what dwells at the center of the circle, love. This past spring, as noted, I was fortunate to be part of a clergy study group that explored the history of Universalist and Unitarian statements of faith and the current Article 2 process. One of my colleagues, the Reverend Joan Javier Duval, wrote a paper reflecting on what it could mean to place love at the center of this circle of values, to have, in the words of Article 2, a spiritual discipline of love. She affirms that, like many other traditions and cultures, the human experience of love has been a guiding value throughout Unitarian Universalist history. The Universalists wrote the Winchester Profession in 1803, in Winchester, New Hampshire, that is, proclaiming in part that God's nature is love. Another proclamation in 1935 defined the holy as eternal and all-conquering love. The Unitarians also claimed love as a theological touchstone, with William Channing Gannett defining the sacred as that love with which our souls commune. Behind me, in the chancel, which you can't see because it's behind the screen, enshrined in our stained glass window is the simple statement, God is love, here in the place where we gather for worship. Naming love as the center of our ethical lives, naming love as synonymous with the divine is, on the surface, a simple thing. One could say these ideas are common sense. But, and here we come to other important questions when considering Article 2. What does love mean when it's named as a spiritual conviction? I forget the author, but I remember the idea. The word love is said so often it's almost meaningless, but for many of us, it's the word we most want to hear. Love can be cliche, trite, unhealthy, shallow. Love can be mature, transformative, transcendent. What does it look like at the heart of our spirituality? Countering Reverend Grieve, we can debate what love is. Javier Duval explores these questions, drawing from thinkers within and beyond Unitarian Universalism. For love to be spiritually foundational, it is defined by intentionality and extension beyond the self. It is defined by connection and caring for the needs of others. Feminist theologian Carter Hayward defines love as just, mutually empowering, and co-creative. I appreciate the definition of love by UU theologian Rebecca Parker as shared by Javier Duval. Love is what happens in the vibrant interchange among living beings and life forms. It is the experience of being drawn to one another, of interacting with each other to create happiness and joy, to labor to care for life's daily needs, to give refreshment to the soul. Love blesses the intersections among individual beings and the whole fabric of existence. Yet, mature love has limits and boundaries, and there is a place for accountability within loving relationships as there is a place for love within accountability, which perhaps brings us to the hardest question of all. What does love look like when conflict is high and relationships are hard? How do we love each other across searing lines of politics and identity in today's world? As Reverend Grieve asks, how do we love in difference? Today's visual meditation recounting how this process began with leaders receiving hate mail from fellow UUs makes a strong case for naming love as our guiding star. But when we have trouble naming what love is, we can often identify when it's absent. Committing to an ethic of love is a good place to begin. When I attended Unity Temple, each time I approached the front door, I was greeted by an affirmation emblazoned on the outside wall in metal, making clear the purpose of our gatherings under this famous roof: for the worship of God and the service of man. After I left Unity Temple for my first ministry, I heard that someone stole these metal letters, assumably for cash for scrap. Once I worked through my sense of violation, for me, this raised an interesting question. Now, literally robbed of their statement of purpose, would Unity Temple replace the statement as it was, or would they choose different words, perhaps words more reflective of contemporary Unitarian Universalism? Having left the congregation, I don't know what process unfolded, but recent photos reveal that the traditional statement was replaced as it was. Was this decision made by the Wright Foundation, charged with historic preservation, or by the Unity Temple congregation, part of a living tradition? However this decision was made, however we collectively make decisions about the words that articulate our deepest commitments, it is my hope that the end result reflects a living tradition, the spirit of life, and not a museum with or without postcards for sale.
Now comes that important time for us to make an offering in support of this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The last few years have been tough for us individually, but it's also been a tough year financially for the financial health of the Winchester Unitarian Society. Giving makes possible the many benefits that this wonderful community supports. Here are the different ways you can donate. Those in the sanctuary may give cash, checks, or donate electronically. Text to the number in your order of service or visit our website under the giving page. If you are here for the first time, either in person or online, you are our guest. In-person attendees can find a physical visitor card in the pew racks in front of you. Please complete it and put it in the collection plate. Information about how to give online and how to complete the virtual visitor card will soon be shared with live stream attendees through text on your screen. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
Those who wish to do so are invited to join in the unison affirmation. We gather not for ourselves alone, but to use our common power to build the beloved community within and beyond these walls. We create and reaffirm this covenant this day to make justice flourish, to practice compassion amidst difference, and to embody transformative love. Please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing our closing hymn, number 131 in the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us.
And I will take advice from a rabbi who said once, if you don't sing well, sing loudly. This hymn is meant to be enthusiastic whether you are a opera star or not. So let's sing. We have gathered under the banner of a shared faith. We are born of a welcoming grace that extends and receives love. We are touched by the ways we have fallen short of who we strive to be, and we are here reborn, forged by a greater courage. Let us move from this place encouraged and refreshed for the journey ahead.
Please read together the words for extinguishing the chalice that are printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. This service has ended, but our life of service continues. Let's continue the conversation at social hour and then gather in the parlor around 11:30 to discuss the service.